Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Opinions expressed on the First Coast Connect Week in Review are those of our panelists and do not reflect the views of WJCT News 89.9.
Good morning. I'm Ann Schindler, and it's Friday, which means it's time for our First Coast Week in Review here on First Coast Connect. Among our topics, the Jacksonville City Council successfully slogs through a late-night budget fight, but first responders worry about the impact of their property tax cuts. An effort to protect sea turtles from vehicles may end up increasing their exposure to beach driving. And the city ponies up production incentives to win back TV and film shoots. Here to talk about all that and more, I'm joined by Mike Mendenhall, City Hall reporter and associate editor at Jacksonville Today. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Ann. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you. Tricia Booker, author and journalism professor at the University of North Florida. Good morning, Tricia.
Good morning.
Obi Umunna, attorney and political consultant. Obi, good morning.
Good morning.
And Jake Stofan, city and state government reporter at Action News Jax. Jake, good morning.
Good morning. Good to be back.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with this late night fight because, first of all, I think we all owe a thank you to Jake and Mike that are here. An all-night meeting. Jake, have you had a chance to rest up a little bit since then?
I slept for 5 hours from 5:30 in the morning to 11. Then I worked for 4 hours, and I slept for an hour, and then I slept for a full night. So, yeah, I'm good.
You're caught up?
I'm good. You know, Thursday night football kept me up a little bit last night.
You got a Celsius in front of you, so you can't be all the way back.
Yeah, that's an everyday thing. I didn't get the pounder, as they call them in Fargo.
So this meeting ended around 4:30 something.
I think I was leaving at 4:30 after doing interviews. So I think it was probably like 4:15 is when they, left the dais.
Epic. But, this is a $2 billion budget they ultimately approved. Were there some clear winners and losers here?
One could probably argue that Councilmember Rory Diamond kind of lost. I mean, he really put kind of all of his capital and hope into his big, beautiful budget amendment, or what was Councilmember Johnson calling it? He had a different nickname for it.
Yeah.
That was a lot less flattering. Obviously, the amendment that would have, prohibited city funding from going towards abortion, immigrants without legal status, or DEI initiatives, all things that pretty much everyone was in agreement on. The city does not spend money on, so it was really more of like a, political litmus test for everybody up there. Who's willing to stomach this thing that optically, council members would, if they were to support it, have to go against their principles, or if the conservative council members were to vote against it, that's potentially campaign fuel for somebody to run against you, right?
Sure.
So I mean, very politically charged terms involved in it. The actual impact beyond just the optics of it probably would have been nothing, but Diamond was not willing to back down on it, and forced one of his colleagues to be sort of the adult in the room and say, hey, we're going to lose millions of dollars in state funding if we don't have a budget done by the end of this meeting. It's 3:30 in the morning at this point. I'm just going to take one for the team and flip my vote so that we can get this thing across the finish line. That was obviously Councilmember Will Lanen who eventually made that call, after getting some commitments from some of his colleagues that, hey, if I do this, if I take one for the team here, are you going to support the budget and let us get this property tax cut through, which he ultimately was able to do. And that was kind of what I was predicting for the last week and a half, just sort of polling the different council members. I had already heard from some of them that, hey, if it comes down to it, I can stomach the property tax cut, but I cannot stomach the Diamond Amendment. So I wasn't too surprised to see it. I was surprised at how long it took.
You had a great line, Mike, from Will Lanen, who had said, it's a time for pragmatism. 3:30 in the morning, you start to find yourself getting really pragmatic.
Yeah, it was, and he like Jake said, he was the one that kind of became the adult in the room. I think that, I think Will Lanen just, he had voted for the amendment every time. If I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Jake.
The Diamond Amendment.
The Diamond Amendment every time. Up until that point, but I think that, he said that his primary responsibility was to get a budget passed. That's what he was thinking about. And Will Lanen throughout the whole city council finance committee process, he was very staunchly like aware of the coming deficits, and he was really focused on the numbers. That's kind of what he's been focused on pretty much the whole time, and I think that really showed through in what in his final vote. And I think he'd received praise from members of his own party, but also to the members of the Democrats for switching that vote at the end.
So obviously there was, very strong emotions at this meeting on both sides. And we know that our colleagues at News4Jax talked to Jimmy Peluso. He's the downtown city council member. After the after the vote, let's just take a listen to what he had to say.
A budget's not supposed to be a policy document where you outline something that's highly partisan and completely unnecessary in a budget. I don't think this tax cut was meant to help taxpayers. If you rent, it does nothing for you. If you own a middle class or an upper middle class home, the cut is going to be maybe $2 a month.
So Obi, I want to ask you. Obviously, Jimmy's a Democrat, and he remained sort of a thorn in the side of his opponents throughout this debate. But when he's talking about a budget not supposed to be a policy document, can you kind of delve into what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I think normally a budget is just numbers and, finance, right? There should not be any kind of extra kind of policy items inside of that budget, right? The rest of the government is left to do the policy and the ordinances that go along with it. The budget is normally supposed to be just finances. And I think a lot of times people talk about a budget as your priorities, but really priorities in a sense of money, not in the sense of policy items or anything else like that.
But that is changing certainly at the federal level, right? We've seen all kinds of pre-allocated funds going away, being withdrawn because they don't align with, the current president's mission or his stated goals.
Well, I mean, I think that's something that's always been there in a lot of ways, but I think that the difference is adding an amendment that speaks to a particular policy item is what's different, right? I think every administration makes budget decisions based on their priorities and things that they think are important or not important, and those are coming from policy decisions, but to actually have that inserted into the budget document is a little bit different.
And Tricia, we shouldn't forget, and we're talking now about kind of the amendment side that created additional controversy, but the millage rate cut was very significant as well, because it was going to be taking, $13 or $14 million out of this budget. And most of the cuts were targeted on, financing for things for people who were poor or unhoused or perhaps elderly. So there was a lot of programming that was being shrunk or defunded in order to accommodate the millage rate decrease.
Yeah, I was really struck by the diversity of people who spoke against the millage rate. And I thought the media did a really good job covering that. In particular, the man who said, look, for me, this is 2 McDonald's Happy Meals and a tank of gas. $19 a year is
and
really...
I think he said, looking at me, I don't need any more
he
Happy
did.
Meals.
Yeah, and I think it's instructive to look at the fact that the police and fire departments are like, this is not going to work. We can't have a growing city, and still you're going to assure that we're going to be able to deliver people the services that they need. So much so that you had to put money aside to make sure that they weren't going to suffer cuts because of the millage rate. I don't know, when we were talking about how policy should not be in a budget, this is a perfect example. And I do think it comes from the top. It's not trickle-down economics. It's trickle-down rhetoric from the federal government to the state government to the local level.
Sure. So Council President Kevin Carrico, disagreed with that assessment of this being, a political ploy or a political tool. And he also spoke to our colleagues at Channel 4. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, the 1/8 reduction is not political at all. I think giving taxpayers money back and not wasting money on government spending, it's not political at all. That's something that we owe our taxpayers as the fiscal agents of the city council. We appropriate the dollar. So when there's an excess of revenue and we think we can either tuck some away in the reserve or give it back to the citizens.
So, Jake, that's, the position that these city council members who supported the rollback, not a rollback, but a cut to the millage rate, said from the beginning is we are hearing from our constituents. They're having really difficult times right now, whether it's affording groceries or insurance or watching their property taxes, increase even if the rate isn't increasing, but seeing their payments go up.
Well, and, I think to some degree, Tallahassee is committed to putting something on the ballot in 2026. Local governments are very likely to lose some level of property tax revenue, whether they like it or not. One could probably make the argument, forecasting that to come, you got to kind of figure out how to operate with a slightly smaller budget, if you're going to be prudent. So I think that's a big thing. I think property tax, it polls well. It's a very popular thing right now. I've been hearing from, sort of insiders who are talking about the 2026 race, and they're saying, if you're not for a property tax cut, you're going to have trouble as a Republican in Florida. That's what their voters want to see. Obviously property insurance is a big thing as well. Sometimes maybe those get conflated a little bit. You pay your mortgage and you're paying all that at the same time. What's actually making your mortgage go up? But I don't think there's any question, home values have increased. People are paying more in their property taxes, even if the rate is going down, right? So I think that it's again, kind of a political litmus test, you want to be able to say that you cut taxes, you cut your property taxes when you're running for re-election in 2026.
Obi, I saw some research that showed that the number of seniors who are, homeowners and not currently paying mortgages, that their awareness of and their support of a tax cut is far more pronounced than the rest of the state, because they are not paying through escrow like a lot of homeowners are doing. They're actually getting a bill, seeing it go up year after year. And so they really feel that. And of course, seniors tend to vote more and vote more reliably.
Yeah, but also seniors are on a lot of times on a different type of budget, right? Because they're either retired and they're not bringing in the same amount of money as possible as usual, and then that's sometimes their biggest bill is that property tax bill. And I think there is the state of Florida has bent head over heels to give seniors kind of property tax, homestead exemption, extra exemptions as well. And I think it makes a lot of sense to do that for people that have paid on their house for 30, 40, 50 years and then are still doing that. The problem is, they are benefiting from those property taxes, the roads and all the things that go into what the property taxes go for. And so, I think that the solution is going to be difficult because they have these bills, the prices of food and all this other stuff haven't gone down, and they're looking for some relief.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, I'm talking to Mike Mendenhall, Tricia Booker, Obi Umunna, and Jake Stofan about the week's headlines. And just a bit, we're going to be talking about the surprising expansion of beach driving on Amelia Island. But right now we're talking about the city budget, and you can reach us at 904-549-2937 or by emailing firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. You can also reach out on social media at FCC On Air. We've got a call from John on the South Side. Good morning, John. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. I'd just like to say about the budget, I'm disappointed in both sides of the rhetorical aisle at the council. One saying the sky's falling because of a $13 million cut, and the other is saying they're doing great things by providing that cut out of a $2 billion budget that's seemingly rapidly expanding. And there's a continued lack of discussion about what they're going to do about the $1 billion they need for a new jail, the $1 billion they'll need for a new convention center now that that's in a number of years going to be demolished for the UF facility. It just seems like neither side has truly given us the straight skinny on what we're facing as a community. And thank you for the time.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate that. We also got an email with a question for you, Obi, saying, can you ask Obi why the Democratic Party isn't hitting back harder at folks like Rory Diamond and the other political performers? Just telling folks what an irresponsible dereliction of duty it would be to surrender the council's job and the city's budget to the state should get him disqualified as a serious person. The Dems wouldn't even have to remind people of the Canine for Warriors expose. And that's obviously referring to some to an article that was published in Folio about his role with that nonprofit.
Yeah, I mean, I want to give the Dems they did a good job. I mean, if you watch the meeting, they went pretty hard at Councilman Diamond throughout the meeting, and they've done what they needed to do. I would say that it is also the responsibility of kind of not only just the people, but like a lot of the big donors in town and all the people that were against it also were against it, and he still did not budge. And so I don't know if there was anything that was going to really get him off of what he wanted to do that night. And I think he feels like he was following his convictions, and I think the Democrats really did take it to him that night and have been for the last couple of weeks. I do think, though, kind of going to the first callers thing, I think the Democrats really were talking about this $13 million, not only for this year, but for the years to come. And that is money that was going to go towards kind of some of these projects. But not only that, a huge deficit that we have. And I think the Democrats were the only person that were really talking about that in a way that made sense. So I mean, I don't agree with necessarily that email, but I do think, obviously people now have the opportunity to exact revenge on the council people that didn't vote the way they liked.
I mean, I think that the whole freedom of speech issue comes into play in this war against people speaking their minds. When you have prominent people in town who are speaking out kind of loudly about things, they're worried about that. They're worried about the repercussions. They're worried about boycotting. They're worried about being attacked. So I do think that there's been a chilling effect on people's willingness to speak their minds about these topics.
We've got a call from John on the west side. Good morning, John. Go ahead. John, you're on air. Go ahead.
I think you have Tom.
Oh, sorry. Well, go ahead, Tom. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yes, I just wanted to say that a $12 tax cut on a $1,500 property tax is pretty insignificant. And also wanted to add that the one thing I do see as significant is I think the willingness of council members to cross the aisle and vote across party lines. I'm hoping that winds up offering the city more flexibility going forward. I'd really like to see that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your thoughts. In terms of the state involvement, if this budget, had not passed, Jake alluded to that, but what would have happened if they had been unable to reach a resolution on this, Mike?
Well, my understanding is that there'd be a loss of almost $200 million in state funding that could occur, and then also too there could be a situation where state officials could come in and actually exert some control over the budget and try to finalize that like themselves. Like there's provisions in the Florida statute that would allow that to happen. And because the city council has to have a budget in place by October 1st, like that's the statutory deadline. So that's my understanding as to what would have occurred. I also too wanted to kind of go back to one of the caller's points about future budgets or like looking toward the future. That was one of the big arguments too of the police and fire unions with the millage cut is that, look, we know that this city council has been supportive of JSO and the Jacksonville Fire and Rescue Department financially, but we're more concerned about what the unknown is with future councils and compounding loss of revenue over the years as this millage cut continues to go forward and forward. Like we're trying to mitigate the unknowns. And even though $13 million, may not seem like a big number in this particular budget, you add years and years on it, you're talking about tens of millions up to hundreds of millions of dollars, which eventually will start to impact, their argument was, city services such as JSO and fire. So I think that was kind of a similar argument too that all of the opponents to the millage cut were making, is that we're going to start to see basic city services like roads, bridges, infrastructures more difficult to put forward. Jimmy Peluso, as we noted earlier, was staunchly against the millage rate cut. He was saying that, look, there's $20 million in road projects that we could pass tonight. He tried to put an amendment on the budget to do that. And pull from the city reserves. But I think the broader point he was trying to make is look, we're cutting, $13 million in revenue when we already have $20 million in road projects that we could pay for now. So.
Yeah. In terms of the, impact for basic services. Obviously, public safety was a big part of that. And Randy Reeves, who represents the police union, has been pretty vocal opposing the tax cut. He spoke to our colleagues at First Coast News. Let's take a little listen to what he had to say.
We go back, we've seen officers be laid off. We've went 10 years with no pay raises and a 3% pay cut, and we've even seen our defined benefit plan, our pension, go away, which now we've negotiated back, coming back here in 2 years, all based off balancing budgets and millage rates being rolled back.
Jake, they've, in recent years, they have seen layoffs. They have seen 10 years without a pay raise and this giant change with the pension, which hurt recruitment, it hurt retention, and they've fought, and ultimately this administration will return them to a defined benefit pension plan instead of sort of this 401k that they'd switched to. So they have, pretty recent examples of what happens when there isn't enough money to support what they think is an appropriate amount to spend on public safety. And yet it is an enormous amount of the budget. It seems to go up every single year.
A lot of employees. But I also spoke with Randy Reeves on, Wednesday. He did say that with all 19 council members committing to essentially sanction off, a swath of the city reserves to create essentially a third reserve dedicated to public safety, that does ease their concerns to some degree. I mean, the real question is, how much is FRS going to cost? How many people are going to opt into that?
That's the Florida retirement system.
Yeah. How much is that, going to balloon? How much are, law enforcement agencies around Duval County going to raise pay to stay competitive? And how much will Duval have to, put up to respond to that in future years? And whether it's 13 million or 20 million or 25 million that they put into this, public safety contingency account, how long is that going to last? Is that going to be something that could get us through 1 or 2 tough years, or is it something that would only get us through 1 tough year? Is there still going to be money added to that year over year to ensure that, there's a substantial amount to get us through some rainy days, or is it going to be something that dries up very quickly? So I think there's still a lot of questions surrounding how that's going to look, what kind of commitments they can get going forward, and of course, just how other law enforcement agencies are acting, or how other counties are acting around us that puts pressure on Duval to ensure that we can continue to recruit. Because I think the number is there's still 92 or 93 vacancies at JSO right now after some pretty massive pay raises. To get us kind of up to the level where the other counties are.
And I think they're going to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think what Randy Reeves is saying is absolutely correct. I think the real question is hurricane, if something happens, a hurricane, they know they have those 95 open positions. They know they can go after those. And I think, I will say this is just as a warning, I think even this dedicated reserve fund is just going to be a shell game of finances if they don't have a dedicated funding source for this money and different rules about whether or not you can use it or not. And I think that is just going to be another issue where they're just going to say, just like having a couple different bank accounts in your actual bank account, it's not going to matter. If they need to get to those reserves, they will get to those reserves. And so I think Randy and the Firefighters Association were absolutely correct to look back at history and see that when times have gotten tough, sometimes, those people have suffered as a part of that, but the council people didn't listen. So,
well, it sounds like they're going to be talking about this reserve fund and the rules on October 14th. We got a call from David in Mandarin. Good morning, David. Go ahead.
Good morning. If the state eliminates property taxes, what are they proposing to use as replacement revenue?
That's a great question. And so I'll leave that to you, Mike. I mean, right now they're saying that it would require, I think, $50 billion to kind of replace that they would most likely have to turn to something like a sales tax.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's still a big question mark as to what they would replace it with. I don't think there's been anything really concrete necessarily proposed, and and I think that I think that there has been talk of that, if they put a property tax rollback and or elimination into place or partial elimination into place. It would phase in over a few years to try to give cities time to adjust their budgets. But my understanding is that there hasn't been anything concrete proposed, and a lot of it's going to be left up to the local level too.
And Tricia, they've been having these meetings, these committee meetings in Tallahassee to sort of learn more about the sources of revenue, how they could all be impacted. And one of the things that they've been hearing this week is from individual counties, representatives of cities and counties. And it does seem like they are getting the message that every county, every city, every municipality has really different needs, different amounts that they receive, different levels of reliance on property taxes. And it did seem that there was some growing recognition that, perhaps a one-size-fits-all property tax cut would be impractical in some ways.
Well, sure. I mean, the math just isn't mathing. Obviously, there are poorer counties that need more to support their constituents. There are counties that live along the coast that are going to need more if a storm hits them. Yeah, there's absolutely no one size fits all. And it's the state's responsibility to look at the different needs within the county and to adjust the budget to fit.
All right. I do want to shift gears. We're talking about the week's headlines, and you can join the conversation at 904-549-2937 or by emailing firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. Tricia, I want to move on now to an issue that is getting a lot of attention on Amelia Island, and it has to do with some unintended consequences from an environmental lawsuit. It's basically a lawsuit indirectly targeting beach driving in American Beach with the goal of protecting turtles, but it has yielded some unexpected outcomes.
Yeah, when the judge who was presiding over the case said, "No, we're gonna send this to mediation." And what happened in mediation is that they came to an agreement that there would continue to be beach driving, but that they would put up additional barriers to protect the environment. Some people thought, okay, well, it's better than nothing. But the truth is that whenever you have people driving on the beach, it's going to affect the environment, no matter what signs are where. Many people have witnessed trucks and cars that are driving around barriers and over the turtle nesting areas. But, we've talked a lot about optics today, and I think there's a lot of optics in play here, that there's no driving on the beach in front of, for example, the Ritz-Carlton beaches. There's no driving on the beach in front of many of the wealthy areas. And American Beach is a historic African-American beach, and it just seems like, yeah, I don't know. Why aren't we working a little harder to protect that area?
Well, I think one of the surprising outcomes, Obi, of this lawsuit that the environmental advocates that brought it and the American Beach residents that brought it perhaps didn't anticipate was that it was going to turn into an expansion of beach driving. So the county has basically had to go back and look at some of the laws that it had previously passed. And now there's going to be an additional 2 miles of beach driving that is already open to the public instead of a diminishment.
Yeah, I mean, I think the objective that they wanted was to stop beach driving, and that did not happen as a cause of this. And I think there is probably more lawsuits and more kind of stuff to go here. I wonder to see the outcome, but obviously it was clear that the residents and the people that brought this did not want what ended up being the result of this. And so I think there's a lot more work here that's left to be done.
Well, one of the things that's interesting is because of this expansion, now we have additional beach driving behind some very high-end, some of the wealthiest enclaves, really, of Nassau County on the southern end of that island. So developments like the Residence, the Amelia Retreat, the Sanctuary, which have all been in existence for a long time. Their homeowners there, very accustomed to a car-free beach, now have cars. And these are some people with deep pockets who are already talking, Mike, about the impacts, the quality of life impacts, the property impacts that they're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, property values is I think there was an article in the Jacksonville Business Journal that was pretty very focused on that and how how property values would go down or could possibly go down with cars driving in front of the beach. And it also makes me, kind of gets back to our previous conversation about property taxes. If property values go down, valuations go down, could that eventually, impact the county more broadly? Because a lot of those properties, they probably produce quite, a decent amount of tax revenue. So there could be a link there as well. And I also think too, it's, from an environmental standpoint, It's interesting. My wife and I were actually on Neptune Beach not too long ago, and we saw a sea turtle nest that had been compromised. So we called the emergency number. It had clearly been, kind of washed out. We just wanted to see what we could do. It was interesting. The person on the other end of the phone said that they're starting to see more and more of that. More during high tide events and stuff. So you're already seeing, pressures being put on some of these habitats, sea turtle nests and stuff, just from natural processes, climate change, with higher, more intense tides, and then you add additional beach driving to that. I mean, it definitely is going to. You're definitely going to see a continued push by the environmental community to try to do something about this.
I think it's also a beach access issue, though. I mean, I think it's it's a difficult tug of war because you do have a lot of folks who live way inland who don't have houses within walking distance to the beach, and they traditionally have been able to drive on the beach, and without that driving, they feel like they don't have the same beach access. It has been a long tradition in Florida, but at the same time, our environmental needs are changing. There is more and more Florida beach erosion, which means there's less areas for the sea turtles to nest and hatch. So I think it's an unfortunate tug of war.
Yeah, and Nassau County has an interesting arrangement, Jake, because they limit beach driving. Basically, you have to be a county resident or a disabled member, someone who's disabled or an active duty military member, and so it's a small universe of people that can use that beach. But when you're talking to people that have been fighting beach driving, like the folks in American Beach, who've said that they were sort of cut out of these deals that eliminated beach driving in front of some of the high-end resorts on either side of them, and they've had to bear the brunt of it. So now they're seeing these southern end of the island developments, communities impacted. They're actually anticipating that it could help their cause now that they have sort of more people impacted by beach driving, and that could actually further their desire to further restrict it.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine it just depends on how the people respond to it. I mean, are they going to be excited about going and driving on the beach themselves? I mean, generally when you go out to the beach, you're hoping to just see nature or the occasional tent or sun umbrella, but maybe you like seeing a Chevy Tahoe out there too. I don't know.
Obi, in terms of just the history of this beach, it has its own significance. It was created as a place during segregation for Black families in Northeast Florida and around the state to enjoy the beach, which was something that they didn't have an opportunity to at a lot of segregated beaches. And so it's got this important history, but it has, I think, felt always squeezed by the new development, the resort communities on either side, or all around on the island. And for those residents who live there and feel like beach driving is intrusive, this raises a lot of just kind of historic grievances about how that community has been treated.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it is. I think some of the residents are finally saying this is what we felt like the whole time, right? This is what we've been experienced the whole time, and now other people are starting to experience this, and now people are finally kind of speaking up about it because for the longest time, people have been able have seen this on American Beach and didn't like it, been squeezed by it, and felt that this was not helpful to the beach community and the residents there. And to see that now it's happening in other places, I think that is giving them some credence as far as trying to get this stopped.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Tricia, because an American Beach resident that was interviewed in that story that Mike referenced basically said, they're outraged just as we've been for the last 35 years. But, the person that they interviewed was saying that this could actually build momentum for the cause.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's they're looking at this saying, yeah, welcome to the club, but at the same time, they're welcoming them to the club because it will help to have more money, more momentum, more people speaking out against beach driving.
I think that the environment doesn't always move the needle when it comes to Florida politics, Mike, but property values, property rights does. And so I think it's interesting that you've got HOAs now in that southern part of the island saying we might bring lawsuits based on the fact that our properties, I mean, there's anecdotal stories of people canceling home tours and people not putting their condos on the market because of this development of beach driving, which is going to impact, they say, very seriously the values of those homes.
Yeah, you're bringing in folks that have disposable resources that can actually put towards a fight or a lawsuit. And so that will add an interesting dynamic to this to the story.
All right. Well, I want to move on now to a topic of film incentives, which is something the city under this administration has said they want to get back in the business of trying to lure TV film productions to Jacksonville. So there's this Project T that has been under discussion. I don't think any of us know what that stands for. It's kind of one of these secret until it's not secret. But the council is supporting, Mike, this plan to transfer up to $400,000, which is a no small sum, to lure Project T to town.
Yeah, I mean, when you compare that $400,000 to other code name projects that we're seeing, which are typically development deals or trying to lure large companies or businesses, it's a modest number. But I would say that, I mean, I think it's the most I've seen in a single television or film project that I've seen put in since I've been covering the city of Jacksonville. So it is notable, and I think that, I think it sends a signal. There's a lot of pressure right now on Hollywood, and there's a lot of different states and parts of the country that are trying to get into the film industry, that are trying to lure TV and film production here. So I think that this is a sign that Jacksonville's trying to do the same.
And Jake, this was approved by the council 15-4, which shows pretty strong support for it. The company is planning to spend $3 million in Jacksonville over a period of 6 months, including purchasing or renting 2,400 hotel room nights and employing 100 local folks. So they're saying this is going to give us some return on investment.
Well, and there's definitely a lot of people locally who want to break into the film industry too. I mean, we have people who work for our station who on the weekends go and
shoot films.
go to film clubs or whatever. But yeah, they are usually small scale, projects. You look at what Atlanta has done, in terms of attracting the film industry. I mean, they're probably competitive with Hollywood at this point. I mean, all the Marvel movies and stuff are done there. And obviously Atlanta's seen huge growth as a result of that. And I think that, Jacksonville wants a taste of it. We had it back in the 1930s. We could have been Hollywood, but for whatever reason, it didn't work out. And I think there's a community here that would love to see it come back. At the state level, there have been efforts to bring back film incentives to try to bring more films to the state of Florida writ large, and the politics up there haven't really allowed that to happen in any meaningful way. So I think you have a mayor who also shares that vision that, hey, The Recount, that was a film that was filmed here to some degree. Let's see more of that. And I think there's a lot of people who are really excited to see it.
Of course, we had to live through the real Recount, which is
well, I was in first grade.
Well, you probably remember it well, I'm sure. We've got a call from John in downtown. Good morning, John. Go ahead.
Well, good morning, Ann, and thank you for taking my call and to your panel this morning. Yes, I just wanted to weigh in on Project T. I'm sure it's Project Trump. It's going to be huge. And, the Office of Economic Development, led by Ed Randolph, you got Gregory Grant with JSEB and Todd Red Carpet Rubin. It is just off the charts. It is just the beginning, and just wait for Spielberg, just to weigh in on this. But the movies, documentaries, films. We had McMillions. Well, Jacksonville, get ready for McBillions. And so, anyway, just thank you for taking the call, and just lights, camera, action. Let's go.
Thanks, John. Tricia, Jake sort of alluded to the silent film era, which obviously we had a lock on the film industry. We were the Hollywood of the South. But even in the 90s, there was before the state got rid of incentives for film production, there was a fairly decent amount of films that were coming to the state. There's obviously great weather. You can do shoots you're not dealing with like rainfall like you are in some other places as often. So, I mean, it really has a lot to sell itself, except until now, really, for the money.
Yeah, we actually have a fairly robust little film industry going on. We have some really well-known underground directors. We've got actors and actresses who are making really cool little indie films. To the speaker's point, I don't think it's a bad thing to worry about whether giving a company this money is going to result in some kind of restrictions on the types of movies that they can make. I think that in this political environment, it's a concern.
Yeah, I'll say this. I mean, one thing is this is why it's nice to have a little extra money in your budget, right? To be able to do and take chances on things like this. If you look at like Shreveport, Louisiana, 50 Cent opened up a big studio there, and they've really reaped in the benefits of that. And I think making Jacksonville open to something like that could also provide a lot of jobs, provide another industry here. I think it could be helpful, but you have to be able to kind of willing to bet and gamble on some of these things, and you need extra funds to do that.
Sometimes you need a champion
Right.
too, like that sort of the one figure that can, be a unifying factor. And we should say, we spoke to the director of a locally shot film, a film shot in Atlantic Beach, called No Sleep Till, and it's actually going to screen here at WJCT Studios next Tuesday, I think. But it's an amazing film, a really kind of beautifully shot art film, and is not a small project in any way, even though it was not necessarily an enormous budget, Mike.
Yeah, when you're bringing these kind of film projects to an area, in addition to hiring local people to help some of the jobs, you're also bringing in crews from outside who are going to spend money, at your local restaurants, your local shops. During the pandemic, I'm familiar with the Netflix show Cobra Kai. They actually filmed some stuff out in Jacksonville Beach area, and they were out in the Neptune Beach Town Center. Their crews they were wearing their shirts and stuff, and they were in there shopping, and they were eating out and stuff. And that's just a small example of, when you bring these bring these productions in, they're gonna spend money while they're here too, and in addition to just what they need for their film production.
I do just briefly want to talk about open carry in Florida, because while it's sort of under the state attorney general been sort of the law of the land, open carrying a firearm in Florida didn't actually become, according to the courts, legal until yesterday, Thursday. And so now we're going to be a state that allows open carry. In fact, we're really sort of late to the game, Obi. I mean, Florida is the 47th state to legalize open carry. Do you think it's going to be make a big visible difference?
I mean, I'll be honest. I'm surprised that we are kind of a little bit behind there. I do think it's going to make a difference. Obviously, will take some kind of people getting used to it, and there are still some restrictions on open carry here. Private property, private companies can also restrict you, as well as government and schools and stuff like that. So I think it will take some adjustment. I think people have been used to the concealment laws, and so I do think it'll take some adjustment. I do think you'll start to see more and more, though.
It's interesting, too. This change has apparently exposed a loophole. I've seen some reporting that the sensitive locations prohibition might only apply to handguns. This is according to the general counsel for the Florida Police Chiefs Association. So there's this whole list of prohibited places, but whether or not that applies to, for instance, rifles or long guns could be a whole other matter yet to be determined.
Yeah, I've asked that question. I interviewed Eric Friday, the attorney who kind of led that lawsuit that was challenging the state's open carry prohibition. I was asked him, does this apply to rifles? He said yes, but I agree, because I read that statute and I had the same question. It specifically says handguns.
Yeah.
So can you carry a rifle into City Hall? I don't know.
Well, there's still a lot to be figured out. Tricia Booker, Mike Mendenhall, Jake Stofan, Obi Umunna, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Andy.
Ian.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Up next, we're going to be talking about the return of the Great American Scarecrow Festival.
In a small Florida beach town, the storm is coming. As Atlantic Beach prepares to evacuate, a few stay behind. From debut director Alexandra Simpson, No Sleep Till. One night, one storm, no turning back. Join us Tuesday, September 30th at WJCT Studios. Doors open at 6. Film starts at 6:30. Tickets at wjct.org/film.
On the next Florida Roundup, Florida was one of the only states not to allow people to openly carry guns in public. But after a court ruled that a long-standing gun law was unconstitutional, the Florida Attorney General has now declared Florida an open carry state. How do you feel about seeing more guns out in the open? Tell us at radio@thefloridaroundup.org. I'm Danny Rivero. Join us Friday noon until 1.
On the next
White House officials blame anti-ICE rhetoric for a fatal shooting at a facility in Texas. On the next Friday News Roundup, more finger-pointing over violence in the U.S. Plus, the White House threatens mass firings to avoid a government shutdown, H-1B visas get a price hike, and a new warning label for a common drug. That's all next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, the Great American Scarecrow Festival returns to St. Johns County this weekend. Joining us to tell us what's on offer and who will benefit is Malia Gariba. She's the founder and CEO of the charity Pie in the Sky, and she joins us now on the phone. Good morning, Malia.
Good morning, Ann. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
It's been a minute.
It has been a minute. Thank you for doing. I know that you're not feeling great this morning, so I appreciate you joining us by phone.
Sure.
This is just one of really dozens of fundraisers now that Pie in the Sky does, but this is a pretty significant one, and it really is much more of a community-based one that tends to involve lots, sometimes hundreds of people. So remind us a little bit about, first of all, Pie in the Sky, what the mission of the charity is, how it came together in the first place.
Well, Pie in the Sky Star, we're having our Sweet 16 this year. We've been around for 16 years now, hard to believe. And we started out in Hastings. It's just a kind of a one-woman show, filling in the cracks. And we made friends with Steve and Sue Morazzo over at Simple Gestures, and they held our first fundraiser, Perlo Pies and Pews. And then in 2010, we had the first Scarecrow Festival, and it was, as you said, just kind of a way to give back to the community and let everybody have some fun. And you were there with your little boys, who I know are not little anymore.
Not so little, that's right.
Yeah, and my grands as well. And it was a hit, and we did it until 2018 when Steve and Sue sold their place. And so the feed mill reached out to us and said, hey, what do you think about this? And we said, yeah, color us in. And the money raised will go toward our only program, which is delivering fresh, healthy produce to more than 800 low-income, hungry seniors throughout all of St. Johns County.
And so this has grown, the mission has grown, the footprint of the seniors that you're able to serve has grown greatly. But this really is, addresses hunger for seniors, but also isolation. This is a home visit that comes with healthy meals. The focus is on fresh produce. It's on eggs, which has been a big focus of yours as well in terms of trying to get, important protein to older people. So this is a fundraiser event, but it is an event that also is free to attend, the Scarecrow Festival.
It's no entry fee. But there will be, we'll have sandwiches for sale, and I think it's like $5 to make a scarecrow, and we'll have tons of baked goods. So
including pies.
Including pies.
Yeah.
And our approach is a preventative one, trying to help eliminate that $130 billion healthcare bill that's a result of senior hunger and social isolation, by addressing it where it starts, which is lack of access to fresh, healthy food. So we deliver that to these folks, keeps them out of the hospital, and they're able to age in place healthier and happier.
And so you mentioned the feed mill. This is the Tecoy feed mill, which is on County Road 214 in St. Augustine. It's adjacent. Some people might know Molasses Junction. That's also a
Correct.
place where you can park for this event, and it's on Sunday. So tell us, in addition to the Scarecrow building, I mean, the event provides straw and some materials to kind of help make the Scarecrow, wire and markers and stuff like that. But you are asking people to bring basically a long sleeve shirt and some long pants to build the Scarecrow out of.
That's right. The feed mill is providing the all of the hay, and we have volunteers from Pine that they're building the little, arms and legs. So, and that we'll have all of our Scarecrow experts there to help folks who might not be experts like you, Anne. I hope you'll be out there.
Yeah, well, I will
And,
tell you, my expert advice is to dig out some old baby clothes or kids' clothes, because
Yes.
it's a little easier to stuff a smaller set of clothes, and they work really well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I remember you I think you made one of the first baby ones
Oh,
that we ever saw. Yeah,
well,
yeah.
there you go. I'm glad to be the
And
trendsetter.
You were.
You're also going to be making peace poles, and that's something that you've made in the past and auctioned off. Is that something that's also going to be part of a fundraising effort? These peace poles that are decorated and painted.
So they're just going to. We're not sure what we're going to do with them. The peace pole is a very important event, and we're going to be holding the human peace sign again next year. So we, we may do something with them. We've given them out to local businesses, and it's all about. One of our slogans is from Dorothy Day, who was an activist, and she says, "Peace begins when the hungry are fed." So it sort of ties in with, and we like to bring the peace, and Lord knows we need it.
Yeah. Well, Malia Gariba, the event is this weekend. It's on Sunday, September 28th from 12 to 4. We've got a link on our website with more information. Malia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, gosh, Ann, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. And that's our program. Thank you for listening. If you have questions or comments, you can send either to First Coast Connect at WJCT.org. And if you missed anything, you can catch our rebroadcast at 8 o'clock tonight or find our entire archive on your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget to listen Sunday at 4 when neurologist Dr. Joe Servin chats with a renowned neuroscientist about bipolar disorder and how that's shaped her approach to patient care. Join us Monday when we mark 10 years since the El Faro cargo ship sinking, talking to some family members of those lives lost. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjax.com.